Right, to reflect on these developments in Mozambique, we're joined by Decide Electoral Monitoring Platform Director Wilker Dias. Wilker, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we understand that as Mondlane arrived back in the country, thousands gathered at the airport to welcome him back and, of course, meeting him there upon his arrival. But perhaps before we get into the nitty-gritties, let's reflect a little bit on the impact of the unrest, last year's unrest, whether it be it in business, on lives. How would you reflect on it?
So good evening to everyone about that subject. It's very important to say Mozambique are living a complicated moment in particular. We have so many things happening day by day. We saw the people dead, but we saw some in other part. There were some parties are open to the dialogue, and in the other part, we saw some members of the opposition, so like a target right now. Because we have some group who are make that opposition members are target to kill them or to destroy some infrastructure, particular infrastructure like houses and etc. So right now we have so many tensions in our political democratic sector because we are very close to the inauguration, I think, in 6 days. And during these 6 days, maybe more things will happen, and we don't know what is the expectation to the future.
With the protests having continued sporadically for more than 2 months, do you think we could see Mozambique opposition leader Venancio Mondlane's return add fuel to the fire?
Yes, I think for now, on that last weeks, we saw some calm weather in our political sector, in our society in particular, because we see one division in our society. We have one part who said yes to the demonstration, while other part said no to the demonstration, because we have one other part of the society or make some vandalism during that process. So that is the reason I think Mondlane returned to Mozambique to try to unify one more time the Mozambicans to continue this fight for the electoral truth. Because the most part of the Mozambican people and the opposition leader, in particular Venancio Mondlane, said for him the most important for now is the electoral truth. Because if we don't see any dialogue with Venancio Mondlane during that week or next week before the inauguration, maybe we will see some complicated situation. If you compare, for example, with the Constitutional Council, after the statement of the Constitutional Council, we saw in the streets so many destructions, so many deaths. Maybe we'll see the same thing if they do not have conditions to dialogue before the date of the inauguration.
Because we understand outgoing President Filipe Nyusi invited leaders of parties today for a meeting, the parties that performed well during the elections. We understand Mondlane was not part of that meeting. Is there any insight on what may have come out of that meeting today?
Yes, but first it's very important to say it's not possible to call the other parties to sit in the table if you don't have the principal leader of the opposition. I think the principal leader of the opposition, because all people know the Venancio Mondlane, it's for our society right now. If you don't have that principal actor in the table, I think sometimes we don't do nothing in this type of dialogue. It's only to show the other parties. Right now, I say the meeting of today meeting with the other parties. Then we saw Daniel Chapo, Lutero Simango from MDM. We saw also Fumado from Renamo, Forquilha from Podemos, and Mushanga from Nova Democracia. That all leaders just only talk about the changes in our electoral law. Maybe we'll create one work group to try to see what will happen, what you can do in the next times in the future. But it's not nothing concrete to try to stop and to find one solution to solve that tensive weather right now in Mozambique. So that is the brief, the short note I can give to you right now.
As preparations are underway for Daniel Chapo's inauguration next week, we in fact, just before you and I spoke, President Cyril Ramaphosa was saying that South Africa is ready to give Mozambique as much support as possible, and of course making reference to SADC as well. What kind of assistance and support could be needed for Mozambique at this time from SADC?
So, SADC, the most part of Mozambican people in particular don't trust in SADC for one simple reason. Because in the first step, SADC make one impartial statement during this whole process during 2 months. After 2 months and a half, the SADC need or make one statement to try to do something in Mozambique cases. So it's very late, I think, and the position of the leaders and our community don't trust in SADC. That is the reason we don't write, for example, like civil society in Mozambique, don't write directly for SADC, write directly for South Africa, because South Africa, it's one neighbor, it's one democratic country, and that is the reason maybe in the parliament we can find some way to try to show that solidarity from civil society of Mozambique, and to try to put that action in the African court. But maybe when I said a time we make that letter not only for South Africa government, we make for the other organizations, the countries around our continent. Maybe you'll have some news during this week about that subject.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that update, of course, giving us some insight on the latest developments in Mozambique.